the press must be remembering, about 2 months back, we had exposed with video evidence one superintendent of customs who is still on duty at the Dabolim airport, Mr. Rajesh Dabas, and how is he involved in gold smuggling which happened, which is probably still happening, and we had come up with a video also how the whole nexus, and thereby exposing the whole nexus of Mr. Rajesh Dabas, the superintendent of customs. Subsequently, to follow up the matter, we complained to the CBI. The investigations are on. Central Vigilance Commission also is being informed about it. Rightful complaint is being lodged at Central Vigilance Commission also. We have lodged one complaint in the Customs Department itself, addressing the Customs Commissioner. So all interdepartmental inquiries have been initiated against Mr. Rajesh Dabas, who is caught red-handed. And with video evidence, we have exposed Rajesh Dabas's high-handedness in treating Dabolim Airport as the gold smuggling transit point. So further in that press conference, I had stated that I would be completely exposing the kind of illegalities which are going on, unfortunately, in Directorate of Revenue Intelligence as well. Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, if you all have an idea, is a very premier agency with complete character and integrity, and how these certain officials in Goa are tarnishing the reputation of the whole department of Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, which is a central government body. So to begin with, the purpose of this press conference was to expose the gross misuse and abuse of the power of different DRI officials to trouble certain customs officials, and especially our Goan customs official. So further, I would like to quote one classic case. That case happened in October 2018, wherein many of our custom officers with integrity, honesty, Goan customs officers who have an unblemished record of service of integrity in the department were framed under frivolous charges because of these officials, DRI officials, vindictive attitude. So this case is pertaining to the goods which were, goods which are, let me tell you the process first. This specific case which vindicted Mr. Mahesh Desai, who was in Customs Department, and when the case took place, he was the Assistant Commissioner of GST at Pato. And how this man, Mr. Mahesh Desai, along with other upright custom officials, were framed falsely, were targeted by these DRI officials. To name these DRI officials, the then Additional Director Prashant Kumar and the then Assistant Director DRI, Mr. Lecter Mascarenhas. These two officers, along with other subordinate officers, have completely tarnished the image of our Goan customs official. And the case, just to give you a gist of the case, let me tell you the process. As I said, the process, whenever there are goods which arrive from foreign flights at Dabolim airport, they are first of all intercepted and they are being verified, screened, they are being checked by the Air Intelligence Officers Unit. And upon checking by the Air Intelligence Officers Unit, they are sent to Concord Warehouse. Concord Warehouse is a warehouse which is at Dabolim Airport itself, and it comes under Airport Authority of India. So they place the goods coming from different countries to the airport, Goa airport, and they place it in the Concord Warehouse. Here a frivolous case was formed, wherein it was alleged that there is a nexus of Mr. Mahesh Desai, who has again, he was not with customs at all that time when the case was filed against these people, innocent people. He was the Assistant Commissioner of Central GST, Goods and Service Tax, at Panji Pato. And the goods seizure happened at the Concours warehouse at Dabolim Airport. Now the process, as I was telling you, that Airport Intelligence Unit scrutinizes the goods, and then upon proper scrutinizing, it is sent to the Center Warehousing Corporation warehouse, which is at Sada. Now, in this case, in October 2018, how the case was formed, actually the escorting officer, there is an arrangement of escorting officer who has to escort the goods which are transported from the Concours house to the CWC warehouse. The escorting officer, preventive officer that time was Mr. Hemant Gangwar on duty, and Assistant Commissioner Preventive, is one more post, was Mr. Mohan Kapse. These two people were not involved, were not framed in this case. Mr. Edwin Braganza, who was the Superintendent of Customs, very upright officer. Mr. Mahesh Desai, along with 7 to 8 officers, were framed frivolously. Charges were framed against them that they are running a nexus and they are siphoning the goods from the Concours warehouse. The whole case was based on assumption and presumptions. As we go further, I'm going to tell you, how the judiciary also saved all these, our officers which were implicated by DRI officials, precisely by, to be very specific, by Mr. Prashant Kumar, Additional Director, DRI, and Lecter Mascarenhas and other subordinates of him. So this is the process. So no good was recovered from the CWC warehouse and the Concours warehouse at the airport. The goods were seized there and there. Now if you want, if any investigative agency has to catch hold of any misappropriation or any untoward or illegality which is happening, then they ideally had to play a wait and watch policy. Neither the wait and watch policy was played by DRI, a premier investigative agency, neither they kept a strict vigil on the movement of the goods. So ideally this process should have been followed by DRI. It was not followed. So that itself proves that the DRI officials, Mr. Prashant Kumar and Lecter Mascarenhas, was not at all serious, and they were acting upon someone's instructions to indict our Goan, innocent, honest, upright customs officials in a false case. Later on, as the case proceeded, Mr. Mahesh Desai was arrested. 10 other customs officials were arrested, and they were not only arrested, they were detained for 3 days illegally. There is a rule, this country is governed by the law. If there is any accused in any crime, if he is arrested, then he has to be produced before the court in 24 hours. So all these people, including Mahesh Desai, was arrested along with the 10 other officers, were arrested and detained illegally, and they were given third-degree treatment. They were made forcefully to write and sign and to make the forceful statements by the DRI officials, primarily by Mr. Prashant Kumar. Again, I am repeating it. And then one more, Mr. Lecter Mascarenhas. So this is how the whole conspiracy was hacked by DRI officials, thereby defaming our rightful, honest officers. So there is a big syndicate which is, bringing a bad repute to DRI, an agency of uprightness, honesty, integrity. So this is what we wanted to expose in front of you. This is how they were targeted, And if there was no judiciary, wherein judiciary clearly stated that there are no merits in this case, and judicial, the High Court stayed, and DRI also agreed in the High Court that all these officers, Mahesh Desai, Edwin Braganza, and other officials were detained illegally. It is a DRI. DRI was contradicted its own statement. So this is, completely, you can have an idea how our, local officers' integrity is being targeted by DRI. And there was, this case was supposed to be pursued by Mr. Prasad Kirtani, Advocate Prasad Kirtani. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2019. Very upright, honest lawyer, was a state public prosecutor also during Manohar Parrikar's erstwhile Manohar Parrikar's BJP government. He had framed it very nicely to sum up this whole matter, and I have his undertaking, and he was insisting me to expose all these corrupt DRI officials. He said in one of his observation that the recent case where Assistant Commissioner of CGST Mr. Mahesh Desai has been dragged in a case with no legal bearings goes to show the extent officers from one department try to disrobe others and try to get away, exposing a split in the functioning of the customs department. Here he is completely accepting that these DRI officials, upon someone's instructions, are acting the way they are acting, the way they have acted in this matter. They have tortured not only our custom officials, they have tortured, given their families also mental trauma, psychological tension they had to go through. They have defamed them. So I want to ask this, both of the DRI officials, how could they do this? And what was the reason behind they framing all these false charges? The Mahesh Prashant Kumar has a lot to answer. He is still in service. Mr. Lecter Mascarenhas also has to answer in this regard. And secondly, there are a couple of other DRI officers called Sanjay Pal. There is one more officer called Mrs. Kakodkar, who is also, we are aware, our investigations. We will rather go into the deep roots of this kind of practices of DRI, corrupt officials, and let me warn through your medium, Mr. Prashant Kumar, we will come to you, we will come for you within the ambit of law. Mr. Sanjay Pal, you be aware as well, Mr. Lecter Mascarenhas, though you are retired, we will not leave you as well. So here, there is no accountancy, there is nothing which is being held accountable. False charges against Mahesh Desai, Edwin Braganza, and other customs officials, we completely condemn it, thereby troubling with certain preconceived notions on certain bases of assumptions and presumptions. This torture has to stop, and I request the DRI department to deal with these corrupt officials very sternly and give justice to our local customs officials who are defamed, on whom the frivolous charges are being framed, and their family life is being destroyed. And when they were raided, when Mr. Mahesh Desai was raided, he was served the notice illegally. Let me compare this whole case with Samir Dawood Wankede's case as well. Mr. Mahesh Desai is a class 1 officer. So is Mr. Samir Dawood Wankede, who is in the news for raiding a drug party, supposed drug party, elite drug party, and arresting Aryan Khan and detaining him for 25 days. So both are class 1 officers. This is the case which happened in 2018, and upon one witness's statement, Mr. Mahesh Desai was arrested, and Mr. Samir Wankede, Dawood Wankede, upon 2-3 witnesses, they have come out clear that it is a clear case of money extortion from Mr. Shah Rukh Khan, and the amount was also quoted of 25 crores. So you can imagine no charge is being framed against Samir Dawood Wankhede, whereas the class 1 officer of the same rank is being arrested, detained without any evidences. And then after illegally detaining them, Mr. Mahesh Desai also, upon court's interference, as we call it, Yatho Dharmastato Jaya, thanks to the judiciary. So this is completely judiciary stayed true to its expectations. So if all these honest officers, class 1 officers, are being targeted, falsely targeted by DRI officers for the best reasons known to them, I wonder how justice can be served to a common man. So this is a very serious case, and finally I would like to conclude by giving warning to Mr. Prashant Kumar, Mr. Lecter Mascarenhas, Mr. Sanjay Pal again, Mrs. Kakodkar, who are all operating in DRI as Goa officials, that we are coming for you. The law will catch up with you, and we are not going to keep quiet in these false charges, whatever you have framed and tortured our Goan customs officials without any reason. If there are any questions, then I can answer.